Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before I begin to talk about what I want to go through in this video, I just want to pause for a moment and mention the horrific events that took place in Manchester earlier on today and extend my deepest sympathies to the families of those involved and particularly the victims, and hope they rest in peace. They should still be here, and I sit here wondering how our beloved country, in this case England, has got to the point that we see events like this every single day. You know, when I turn to the news and see pictures like this, the mind absolutely boggles how we've been allowed to get to the point we have. And then I go on to think how we can change things. Now, before I go on with that school of thought, I want to remind you of a video that came out the other day.
This was the inheritance that the Conservatives left behind for us, and their current irrelevance is the price that they have paid. So it now falls to us to rise to this challenge. If we do not, our vision of an open, tolerant and generous country will wither, and where we fail, others will succeed. Working class communities will turn away from us, the party that for over 100 years has been their party, and seek solace in the false promises of Farage. They will turn towards something smaller, something narrower, something less welcoming, and the division within this country will grow. So the challenge we now face is this: not just to win the next election, but to keep the country together and to fight for our belief in a greater Britain, not a littler England.
So she quite happily sits there and disparages England. Isn't that something? And where we see events like today, we wonder where this tolerant society has gone that she so proudly stands there and talks about. It's amazing how she disparages England so, because that just confirms in my mind, at least, that England is under attack. And if I show you this thumbnail, this is a video I did yesterday on, you know, not only what they came out with, but also the solutions to all of our problems that are hiding in plain sight. That much is clear. And that whole Labour affair that we witnessed reminded me of something else from another time completely. Now, what about the people that she's referring to, or they are referring to? That's these people: husbands, wives, fathers, sons, daughters, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters. These are all people marching the flag that they believe in, be it the George Cross, which is the flag of England, which is what I very strongly believe in. And I very strongly believe that this will solve all of our issues. And you can see the Union Jack there too. These are ordinary people, all demonized because they stand up for what they believe is right by those in power that call them wrong. So what do? The only peaceful way to deal with this problem and guide our country back to the way it should be is the vote, the ballot box. That is a right under the English Bill of Rights that is given to us. And it's a right that has been ours to use for hundreds of years. Seems to have lost its meaning somewhere. Now, under the Bill of Rights, it also mentions free and fair elections. And that's not really something that we have anymore, or it's very apparent that we have a big problem with our electoral system. You know who this gentleman is? This is Graeme Moore. This is the chairman of the English Constitution Society and the leader of the English Constitution Party. And at the weekend, I was privileged to go to Leigh-on-Sea to listen to Graeme speak of England, speak of the Constitution, speak of the solutions to our problems. We need to get Graeme in as many places as possible. Speaking of England, speaking of the solutions to our problems and guiding and finding a way out of this together. You know, in all of the documents that make up the Constitution, not one place does it mention race at all. And yet we are demonized because of it. I don't know about you, but I say enough. Now, Graeme stood in a by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. And as you know, this lady was returned as the MP, Reform MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Pochin. Now, there's a problem with this election. And there was a problem with at least one or two others at the same time and the same day. And that was irregularities in the count. In short, there was cheating going on. Now, be under no illusion, Graeme knows full well that he didn't win that election, and he's not likely to. But the thing that Graeme sees is the fact that with cheating going on, and this is something that's been prevalent in our elections for a great many number of years. Our elections are no longer free, and our elections are certainly no longer fair. He stood in the by-election in Tooting a decade ago, where he got the same number of votes that he did in the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby, 50. They bundle them in 50. And when speaking to somebody at the Royal College of Statisticians, he was told that the chances of that happening are 1,000,000 to 1. So think about that. You have to stand in 1,000,000 elections for it to happen just once. Just once. Which leads us to this. In the High Court of Justice, King's Bench Division, in a matter of the Representation of the People Act 1983, and in the matter of a parliamentary by-election for the Runcorn and Helsby constituency held on the 1st of May 2025 between Graeme Harry Moore and Sarah Joanne Pochin and Stephen Young, the returning officer, take notice that the trial of the above-mentioned petition will take place at Chester Crown Court, the 3rd to the 5th of November. The hearings on all days will commence at not before 10:30 a.m. Now, what that is, it's a petition hearing brought under the Representation of the People's Act. There's a problem with the election, and anybody that stands or anybody that registered to vote can bring a petition under the Representation of the People's Act and say, hang on a minute, there's a problem here. Now, there was a hearing in London which Graeme won, which made way to permission to be granted. There was actually 2 hearings he attended, but permission was granted for that trial to take place in front of High Court judges in the nearest court available to Runcorn and Helsby, which happens to be Chester. The scenarios: the result of the vote gets nullified. They have to do it again. The election gets cancelled. They have to do it again. Or he could lose. In any event, this can set a precedent for the entire country that we get free and fair elections, therefore giving us the right, our right, under the English Bill of Rights to free and fair elections, and therefore the opportunity to do something about the situation we're in. Now, the establishment are fighting back. Sarah Pochin is fighting back. The returning officer is fighting back. They're very worried. To that end, they've ended up with what's called an expedited appeal, which is going to be held at the Royal Courts of Justice. And the appeal, or the aim of the appeal, is to try and get that trial cancelled that I just told you. And I want to reiterate at this stage that Graeme does not expect to win. He never did. It was about getting England, the English name, out there and trying to remind people what we are, who we are, and what we can do. We fully expect that Sarah Pochin will walk it if there's a recount. In fact, you know, if there's anything, any fairness with the election process, that is what should happen. But what it will do once and for all is prove whether our elections are free or fair. And what has to happen with this, as it's very important, is public interest. This is a pretty humorous thumbnail that Graham's knocked up. Election petition appeal challenge by the returning officer Sarah Pochin on 16th of October 2025, 10 a.m. till 4. Court of Appeal Civil Division, Royal Courts of Justice, Strand, London, WC2A2LL. England needs you. Graeme needs you. We need you. The problem is with this process, there is no public interest because the mainstream media won't touch it. Politicians ignore it. The British state ignore it because they all know full well that this could expose a very large problem. So they're trying to cancel it, get rid of it, wipe it out. We need as many people as possible at the Royal Courts of Justice. We need as many people as possible in Chester in November, if and when that is allowed to go ahead. We have to make sure that justice is done, that our voices are heard. Otherwise, what is the point in any of it? Please share this video around. Watch it again. Clip it. Slice it. Show it to your friends. Show it to your family. This is one of the most important issues of our generation. What Graeme has done, he's made his closing argument that he intends to deliver at the Royal Courts of Justice, open to the public with permission to share. And I think it's very important that it's played. It's about 9 minutes and 40 seconds long. Please listen to it, listen to his words, listen to the meaning, and you will see exactly where we are. Here's Graeme.
Good evening to everyone in the English Constitution Society, the English Constitution Party. My name is Graeme Moore. We are currently in the High Court, and there is the second highest court in the land, which is the Appeal Court, in front of 3 judges. I wanted to convey to you that we are not free men of the land. We're not these people in the background. We actually deal with the real law. And the closing speech, because the returning officer for Runcorn and Helsby and Sarah Pochin MP have basically challenged the election petition. They're worried about something. What is it they're worried about? I believe it is the fraud of the election. So I just want to run past you my closing submission speech. My lords and ladyships, we are gathered in this court under no ordinary cause. This is not the quarrel of man against man, nor the settlement of some petty dispute of property or contract. It is the trial of principle, the defence of liberty, and the vindication that most undoubted right which our forefathers bled to secure. The freedom of election. For what is an election, if not the very heartbeat of a free nation? It is the moment when the humble man stands equal with the mighty, when the widow and the workman, the farmer and the scholar alike place their trust by a single mark in one who shall represent them. In that act lies no less than the sovereignty of the people. A.V. Dicey, that great expositor of our Constitution, declared that Parliament is sovereign only because the people lend their sovereignty to it. It is a loan, not a gift. It is given for a term, a season, and at the end of that season, it must be returned. The truth was echoed by one of our own recent memory. Tony Benn, a man of Parliament, but above all, a servant of the people. Power, he said, is lent to me, and at the end of Parliament, I must return it. And Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, in her gracious address to both houses, affirmed that the authority of her government derives solely from the people's will expressed in free elections. My lords and ladyship, what nobler chorus could there be? Dicey, Ben, and our late sovereign, all proclaiming the same truth, that the fountain of sovereignty is not found in the palace, nor in this court, nor in the Commons themselves, but in the people. And that fountain flows only when elections are free, fair, and beyond reproach. It is, therefore, a solemn charge placed upon the returning officer in the hour when he takes command of an election. He becomes no longer a mere functionary, but a crown officer. Upon his shoulders rests the sacred duty of ensuring the people's will is neither thwarted nor tampered with. He is answerable personally, criminally, and in tort for every act of wrong committed in the poll, the count, and the return. Yet what have we seen? We have seen the returning officer cease to be the guardian of the ballot and become instead an appointer of the member. We have seen the will of the people displaced by administrative fiat. And let the court understand, when the returning officer appoints, the people are dispossessed. When the return officer appoints, there is no freedom of election. And when there is no freedom of election, there is no sovereign parliament. In 2011, the people themselves were asked, shall we have another form of vote? Shall we depart from our accustomed ballot and adopt the alternative vote? And the people, in the clear light of referendum, said no. They chose their franchise, plain and uncorrupted. Yet what I and 3 other witnesses observed was not mere deviation, not some trifling irregularity. It was a crime against the foundation of our liberty, a trespass against our undoubted human right of freedom of election. My lords and ladyship, the freedom of election is no small matter. It is the root of the tree, the keystone of the arch, the sure foundation of every other right. Without it, our liberties are a house built on sand, our parliament a chamber of echoes, our constitution a parchment without life. And what then of rules and forms, of procedures and regulations? These, my lord and ladyships, are but the handmaids of justice, not her mistress. Shall the forms of law be raised up to crush its spirit? Shall technicality strangle the people's birthright? No prejudice is done to either party by hearing this cause, but the gravest prejudice, the gravest injustice would be done to the people of England, were the court to close its ears to the subversion of their will. I say again, procedure is but the garment. Justice is the flesh and blood within it. Tabulated legalism must not be allowed to become the cloak of tyranny. And so, my lords and ladyships, I submit, this court has not merely the power, but the duty to act, to vindicate the ancient right of freedom of election, to guard the sovereignty of Parliament by upholding the sovereignty of the people. To refuse would be to betray Dicey, Ben, and her late Majesty. to betray the very principle on which our Parliament stands, to betray the people themselves. Let us then tear away the veil. Let us name this wrong for what it is. It is not a mistake. It's not an accident. It's not mere irregularity. It is usurpation, the theft of the people's voice, the silencing of their will, the pollution of their franchise. And if this court permits such usurpation to stand, then freedom itself is but a word, and Parliament but a hollow name. But if this court acts, if it strikes down this wrong, then it proclaims to England and to the world that here the ancient rights of free men are still guarded. Here the sovereignty of the people is still honoured. Here the Constitution still lives. My lords and ladyship, I rest my case. Let justice be done, though the very heavens fall. Thank you.
Very, very powerful words. Very powerful. And it really goes to sum up everything. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. As I say, sharing is caring. Please blast this everywhere. We need to get as much interest as we possibly can for this situation, because at the end of the day, it affects all of us. Remember the dates, particularly the 16th of October. I will be there at the Royal Courts of Justice supporting Graeme, and need as many of you there as possible. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and always remember, the Constitution is the solution. I look forward to talking to you again soon.